The alien woman was being lynched by the crowd until the human man saved her. The air on Varela Station smelled like recycled fear and burnt noodles. If fear had a tangy aftertaste, and noodles had once been alive and possibly sentient. Rhys Calder stood outside the gutted Comet, half dive bar, half black market dentistry, and tried to light a cigarette that had disintegrated slightly in the humidity. Around him, a crowd was gathering like fungus around rotting meat. Someone was shouting. That was normal. Someone was being shouted at. That was slightly less normal. And the shouting was echoing off metal bulkheads with a little too much bloodlust to ignore. He flicked the dead cigarette aside and followed the noise. It wasn't hard. Nothing on Varela was subtle. The corridors were lit with glitching neon that flickered between welcome and we apologize for the eels, depending on how the local wiring felt about its life choices. Up ahead, the plaza, waving makeshift weapons, hydrospanners, broken drones, one guy with a leg he was definitely still using. At the center of it all, a woman. Not just a woman, an alien. Tall, silver-skinned, luminous in a way that made her look like she'd been painted by a god who'd skipped art school. Her long ears curved back elegantly, twitching like antennas trying to tune in to a better reality. She didn't speak, didn't cry, just stared at the mob with an expression like she was mentally categorizing them by likelihood of tripping over their own self-importance. "She stole the governor's eye," a man shrieked, face red with alcohol and injustice. "The good one, the golden one." Rhys looked at the woman, then at the governor's aide, who was missing several teeth and a sock, then back at the woman, who remained stubbornly unimpressed. "You're telling me she snuck into Malkthrun's fortress, avoided a dozen kill drones, bypassed retina-coated vaults, and stole a shiny eyeball?" "She also whispered blasphemies to the servers on Deck 3, another one shouted. "She made my dog existentially depressed. She smells like treason. She corrected my grammar," someone muttered darkly. That last one got murmurs of agreement. Rhys sighed. He hadn't planned to get involved. He really hadn't. His last attempt at playing hero got him court-martialed, banned from 3 planets, and hugged by a sentient cactus named Steve. But there was something about the way she stood there, unflinching, unafraid, like she was the eye of a very sarcastic hurricane. The exo-welder raised his pipe. "Let's see if Silver bleeds." Rhys stepped forward. "Touch her," he said, "and you'll answer to me." Silence, as if the station itself sucked in its breath. A few folks recognized him. He still had a bit of a reputation from his enforcer days, mostly involving high-speed chases, illegal moonshine, and that one incident with the singing toilets. "Who the hell are you?" the pipe wielder growled. Rhys grinned. "Oh, I'm nobody. A nobody with a neural disruptor and a very itchy trigger implant." He didn't have a neural disruptor. He did have a tube of mints and a half-charged plasma cutter. Fortunately, the crowd was both undereducated and overconfident. They backed up a little, not enough to leave, but enough to hesitate. The woman tilted her head, ears flicking. Her voice when she spoke was smooth and disinterested. "You're bleeding from your ear. Is that normal for your species?" Rhys blinked, touched his ear. "Oh, that's from earlier. I fell asleep during a loud argument with my ship's AI." "You argue with your ship?" "She started it." A chair flew past his head. The mob had not entirely been pacified. Someone had lit a torch, which was impressive considering the fire suppression systems on the station had been replaced by angry water weasels. "Time to go," Rhys muttered. "To where?" the alien asked. He considered. "Somewhere that doesn't include being diced by wrenches. Come on." He grabbed her wrist. Uncomfortably so, like touching a sunbeam with attitude. They ran. Behind them, the crowd gave chase, yelling creative death threats. Rhys led her through a maintenance hatch, down a corridor labeled "Absolutely Not a Shortcut," and into the old hydroponics bay. The lights flickered like they were trying to blink Morse code for "Run, idiots, run." "My name's Rhys, by the way," he panted. "You got a name, or should I keep calling you Shiny?" "Sylvessa." "Nice. Elegant. Does it mean anything in your language?" "Yes. It means this conversation is unnecessary during a life-threatening pursuit." He laughed despite himself. They slipped behind a stack of defunct oxygen filters. Voices echoed nearby, getting closer. "So," he whispered, "did you actually steal the governor's eye?" "No." "Good. I did, however, imply he resembles a diseased marsh toad." Loudly, in front of his concubines. Rhys winced. "That'll do it. A scream cut through the air. Somewhere back in the plaza, someone had found the real thief, a malfunctioning cleaning bot with a penchant for shiny objects and poor impulse control. The crowd dispersed like roaches when the lights come on. Rhys and Sylvessa stayed where they were, hidden, listening. Eventually, the station settled into its usual hum of illicit transactions and passive-aggressive announcements from the security AI. "You could have let them kill me," she said quietly. "You didn't know me. You still don't." Rhys leaned back against the filters. "You looked like someone who deserved better." "Statistically, that's rarely true." "Well," he said, "I'm not great with statistics. I am good with improvisation, sarcasm, and breaking into impounded ships. Which reminds me, we need to get off this station. Fast." "Do you have a plan? Does it involve bribery, mild explosives, or pretending to be sanitation workers?" He looked at her. "Yes." She smiled for the first time. It was small, sharp, like a knife politely saying hello. Rhys grinned back. "You're going to be trouble." Sylvessa's ears twitched. "You have no idea." The vending machine attacked them somewhere between Dock 12 and the broken escalator that only went sideways. Rhys punched the blinking interface for the 5th time. "I'm telling you, this thing just insulted my heritage." Sylvessa crouched beside the machine, her fingers slipping under a loose panel with the ease of someone intimately familiar with inconvenient machinery. "It says your DNA sequence is statistically correlated with poor fashion choices. That's rich coming from a glorified snack dispenser with a vendetta against socks. It also thinks your haircut is a war crime. I knew it was lying about being out of coffee." The panel popped open with a spark. A tangle of wires hissed, and the screen blinked once before displaying a sad, pixelated shrug. 2 cans of synthetic cola rolled out. One exploded on impact. Sylvessa offered the second can. "It has apologized." In carbonated form, Rhys took it. "Weirdest truce I've ever accepted. Still better than my divorce settlement." They moved on, weaving through the dim corridors of Varella's lower decks, where the walls sweated condensation and the lighting had long since given up on trying to be helpful. Above them, the station groaned like it was reminiscing about better days, ones with fewer bounty hunters and less mold. Rhys kept one hand near his sidearm and the other gripping a datapad with forged clearance codes that might hold up long enough to fake an authorized launch, assuming, of course, that his ship still existed. Sylvessa walked beside him with the casual grace of someone either fearless or pathologically unconcerned with mortality. Her long ears twitched occasionally, scanning for electromagnetic fluctuations or, as she claimed earlier, bad vibes. "You sure your ship's still in Dock 12?" she asked. "I'm reasonably confident." "That's what the pilot said before we hit that black hole back in my academy day." Rhys blinked. "Wait, what?" She gave a little shrug. "We survived. Mostly. One guy was turned into a song. I don't even want to unpack that." They turned the corner and were immediately greeted by 3 security drones, each the size of a small fridge and twice as temperamental. Red optics flared. One buzzed a warning. Rhys lifted the datapad, put on his best smug bureaucratic face and said, "Inspector Varlin, Special Clearance 9 Zeta. These are the encrypted authorizations for escorting a high-priority political defector to safe jurisdiction. You're welcome for our service." The drones paused, scanned. One emitted a confused warble. Another started replaying hold music. Sylvessa leaned in, whispering, "You misspelled jurisdiction. Twice. I told you I'm not a details guy." A third drone beeped approvingly. "Clearance acknowledged. Proceed." They kept walking. Sylvessa waited until they were out of earshot, assuming drones had ears, then asked, "So who was Varlin?" "Guy I arrested once for smuggling illegal bubble tea. Really hated paperwork. Figured his name deserved a second act." She snorted. "You're either lucky or wildly incompetent." "I like to think I exist in a quantum state of both." Dock 12 loomed ahead, lit by the sullen glow of faulty bay lights. The drunken logic sat in the far corner, wedged between a decommissioned freighter and a stack of unclaimed hover crates. Its hull was scorched, one stabilizer fin was held together with duct tape, and its nameplate was partially obscured by a drawing of something obscene done in coolant marker. Rhys exhaled. "Still beautiful." Sylvessa raised a brow. "That ship has the energy of a mid-crisis. She's got character. She's got tetanus." He keyed the access code. The hatch hissed, then groaned open like it had a personal grudge against being disturbed. Inside, the drunken logic smelled like ozone, burnt toast, and spite. "Welcome home," Riss said. The lights flickered on, the ship's AI voice chimed in, bored and mildly offended. "Oh look, the bipedal disappointment returns." Sylvessa blinked. "Your ship talks back?" "Technically, she's evolved past basic respect. Meet Tessa. Tessa, meet our guest." Tessa's voice crackled. "Analyzing new life form. Fascinating. Ears suggest bad ancestry. Potential for echolocation, 72%. Hair score 8.5 out of 10. Reese's fashion sense drags that average down to a solid 3. Sylvessa grinned. "I like her." "I created a monster," Reese muttered, heading toward the cockpit. "Tessa, power up engines. We're making a fast exit." "Warning," Tessa said. "Unauthorized docking clamps engaged. Also, someone's stolen your port stabilizer and replaced it with a decorative plant." Sylvessa poked her head into the viewport. "It's a succulent. Bold choice," Reese groaned. "Fantastic. Now I have to deal with space horticulture theft." Before they could unhook the clamps, alarms blared. Tessa piped up again. "Correction. We pursuit. 4 incoming heat signatures, likely bounty hunters. Probability of polite negotiation, 0.02%. But one of them does have excellent boots." Sylvessa moved fast. "I'll handle the clamps. You start the launch sequence. Don't crash." Riss buckled in. "You say that like it's a choice." Outside, muffled shouting and plasma fire lit up the dock. One of the hunters launched a grenade that bounced off the hull and exploded into a cloud of glitter. Confetti rained down. Reese peered out. "Was that celebratory ordnance?" "They're trying to look festive while murdering us," Sylvessa called. 10 points for style." She returned just as the launch thrusters kicked in. The drunken logic shuddered, then roared to life. The docking clamps groaned under protest, then popped free with a clang and a noise like a triumphant sneeze. They shot out of the bay like a drunken eel on a slip and slide. Riss whooped. "We're in the black!" Sylvessa buckled into the co-pilot seat. "Now what?" He checked the nav system. "Now we find a place to disappear." Tessa chimed in. "Might I suggest the outer moons of Kraga 4? Terrible atmosphere, worse cuisine, but they owe you a favor. Also, no one goes there willingly." Sylvessa leaned back. "Sounds promising." Riss grinned. "Plotting course for awful moon food and probable betrayal. Let's ride." Tessa sighed. "Why do I even bother?" The drunken logic slipped into the stars, trailing sarcasm, engine fumes, and 2 fugitives with very bad ideas and even worse luck. The drunken logic came out of slipstream with a hiccup and a mournful screech, like the universe had just stubbed its toe. Riss jolted forward, hitting the console with his knee. "That's the sound of confidence, right?" Tessa's voice buzzed through the speaker with all the enthusiasm of a sarcastic librarian. "That's the sound of an aging ship entering a gravitational field that feels like a blender full of barbed wire." "Welcome to Kraga 4. Sylvessa blinked at the viewport. "Is it supposed to be pulsing?" "No," Tessa replied, "but it is, and we're all just going to pretend that's fine." Reese muttered something about planetary personality disorders and adjusted the stabilizers, now fitted with a decorative succulent that had surprisingly not yet died. He'd grown attached, named it Gregory. Kraga 4 filled the screen, a bloated moon pockmarked with mining scars, erratic electromagnetic storms, and buildings that looked like someone had tried to build a city out of industrial leftovers and wounded pride. A sign blinked over the main settlement. "Welcome to Trench, home of the famous Kraga rock omelet." "Try not to breathe too deeply." Sylvessa squinted. "Did that last part say, due to organ liquefaction?" Riss tapped the screen. "It's more of a guideline than a hard rule." Tessa snorted. "You say that like you didn't grow a 3rd nipple last time." "Hey, that thing was useful." They landed outside Trench on an uneven pad that creaked like it held a personal grudge. A welcoming committee met them. 2 squat guards in exosuits, a floating drone holding a no-soliciting sign, and a lanky figure with too many arms and a grin that said, "I have knives in places you can't legally search." "Calder," the figure shouted. "I thought you died in that cargo freighter incident with the sentient yogurt." Reese stepped off the ramp and held out his hand. "Gorbo, you slime-blooded miracle. Still running this paradise?" Gorbo, part arthropod, part whatever evolution forgot to clean up, shook his hand with 2 limbs and offered a 3rd for Sylvessa. "And who's this glittery masterpiece?" "Friend," Reese said quickly. Friend, or complication friend?" Sylvessa smiled. "I haven't decided yet." Gorbo laughed, a sound that made one of the guards twitch. Perfect, come on. I've got drinks, upgrades, and at least one secret I'm dying to share before someone kills me for it. They followed him through the rusted outer gates into the heart of Trench, which looked exactly like a settlement that hadn't been cleaned since the last galactic treaty. Drones buzzed, lights flickered, and a child was arguing with a vending kiosk about the morality of price inflation. Gorbo led them into a building marked SPI and Cyber Tuning, which smelled like lavender and ozone. Inside, faded posters advertised mindful enhancements and spiritual firmware for the modern outlaw. Rhys raised an eyebrow. Still pretending this place is a wellness center? Gorbo grinned. Of course. No one raids a spa. Well, not twice. They entered a chamber where a soft couch hummed invitingly, and a neural uplink chair blinked in the corner like it was hoping no one remembered the last person who used it. Sylvessa circled the equipment. This uplink, it's Karellan in design. Gorbo's eyes twitched. Sharp one she is. Found it in a derelict outside the dusk fields. Woke something up when I turned it on. Started quoting equations I didn't know had letters and teeth. Sylvessa knelt beside the console. This might be connected to the EchoNet of my ancestors. Rhys sat, sipped something fizzy and probably flammable. That's the psychic ghost internet thing you mentioned, right? She ignored him. If I link in, I might access dormant memory strands. Warnings, maybe? Context. Gorbo held up 4 arms. Wait. Last time someone did that, they came out singing opera and swore allegiance to a space goat. Sylvessa already had the uplink connected to her wrist. I'm not most people. Rhys muttered. She's definitely not. The lights dimmed, the uplink hummed. A sharp pulse of energy licked through the air, rattling glass and briefly causing Tessa's voice to echo through every speaker in the building, announcing a sale on antifungal socks. Sylvessa's eyes glowed. She went still. Gorbo whispered, "She okay?" Rhys leaned in. "That depends on your definition. If she starts floating, I'm calling a priest." Sylvessa's voice, when it returned, was layered, hers and something older. They came for our futures. They fed the algorithms with our deaths. They burned us from time. Gorbo looked extremely uncomfortable. "That's not what I want echoing through my spa, thanks." Rhys stepped forward. "Sylvessa, hey, you're here. Pull back." She exhaled. The glow dimmed. Her body slumped forward slightly before she sat up again, blinking. "I saw it. A lattice of probabilities. The Council didn't just erase my people. They reprogrammed their own predictors to ignore our branch of existence. They're trying to monopolize the future." Gorbo shook his head. "Council conspiracy theories again. What's next? They faked the moonfall on Tarsus 9. She turned to Rhys. "We have to go to Lynched Prime." He froze. "That place is dead. Like, dead. Nothing but ruins and half-buried machines. It's where tech goes to die screaming." "That's where the pattern ends," she said. "Where the signal loops back. Something's..." Gorbo coughed. "You'll need more than resolve and hair products to survive Lynched. That planet eats ships for breakfast and optimism for dessert." Sylvessa stood. "Then we'll bring indigestion." Rhys finished his drink. "Of course, because relaxing for 10 minutes would be too easy." Tessa chimed in over the intercom. "Already plotting a course to your inevitable demise." Rhys muttered, "You love us." "I'm rooting for the planet." They left Trench under cover of darkness, the drunken logic lifting off with the grace of a lazy phoenix. Rhys piloted, hands steady, mind racing. Beside him, Sylvessa stared out the window, ears flicking. He glanced over. "Did you really see your ancestors?" "I saw echoes. Pain, resistance, hope twisted through time like a knife." "Neat," he said. "I once hallucinated a dancing lizard named Fred after bad shrimp." She smiled faintly. "Was Fred helpful? Honestly? More than most of my ex-commanders?" They flew on, through dust and starlight, toward a planet that had forgotten its own name, carrying with them ghosts, secrets, and exactly one decorative succulent named Gregory, who had officially seen too much. The atmosphere of Lynched Prime greeted them like an overdue bill wrapped in an insult. Entry turbulence made the drunken logic shudder hard enough to dislodge 2 emergency oxygen masks, 1 motivational poster, and a drawer full of expired protein bars labeled "Do not consume unless very, very sad." Tessa muttered, "Atmospheric friction is exceeding optimal tolerance. Probability of hull insult high. Probability of Rhys doing something reckless. Inevitable." "I'm right here," Rhys said, gripping the controls. "Yes," Tessa replied. "That's the problem." Sylvessa braced herself as the ship banked through storm clouds thick with electrical arcs that danced like caffeinated spiders. This planet is supposed to be dead? Why is it humming? You hear humming, Reese asked. Not like a song, like memory. She touched the console, and the lights flickered for a beat too long. There's something under the surface, something still awake. Great, Reese said. Haunted planets. Just what I needed on my galactic bingo card. They landed in the ruins of what might have once been a city or a really ambitious sculpture of regret. Cracked domes and spires loomed out of the fog like ancient bones. Static hung in the air, making Riss's hair do something deeply unflattering. Sylvessa didn't seem to notice. Her ears were angled like antennas, tuned to a frequency no human could hear. Feels like the planet's judging me, Reese muttered. It is, Sylvessa said, but kindly. They exited the ship with minimal ceremony and one minor trip over an exposed cable. Riss recovered with a flourish and absolutely no dignity. They moved through the ruins with flashlights, though Sylvessa's eyes provided most of the illumination. The ground was covered in fractured alloy tiles that pulsed faintly under her footsteps. She stopped at a pedestal, wiped away the dust, and revealed a symbol Reese couldn't read but assumed meant something dramatic. This is Corellan tech, she said, but twisted, like it was repurposed by something else. A decorating committee with no taste? She knelt, placing her palm on the symbol. A low rumble echoed beneath them. The tiles rearranged themselves, forming a descending path that hadn't been there a moment before. Tessa's voice crackled over the comms. That noise? That's the sound of me updating your life insurance policy. Do we even have one? Riss asked. No, but I thought sarcasm would dull your impending trauma. They descended into a chamber lit by soft bioluminescent strands strung across the ceiling like a spider's mood lighting. At the center stood a device, cylindrical, humming, ancient. It pulsed in rhythm with Sylvessa's breathing. Riss approached, cautiously. So what's this? A giant mood ring? An ancient alien espresso machine? Sylvessa's face tightened. It's Voth. Riss blinked. Voth, the Corellan machine mind? The one that calculated entire civilizations into existence and then broke itself trying to predict free will? It still lives, she said, in fragments. This is one of them. A panel opened. Symbols flickered across it, then translated into text Riss could read, though he wished he couldn't. Welcome, Sylvessa. You are late. The end is ahead of schedule. Not ominous at all, Reese said. Could have at least offered snacks. The machine glowed brighter. A voice, disjointed and layered like it had forgotten how to be singular, echoed through the chamber. Sylvessa of the Corellan. Your kind were erased not to end your bodies, but your influence. Your unpredictability broke the shape of order. Sylvessa stepped forward. I know, the council used you, corrupted you. They used me to simulate control. I gave them dominance over probability. They asked me to predict chaos, and I did. You were the result. You are the result. Riss leaned sideways. Wait, so she's what? A walking paradox? Yes, the voice said, and so are you. That is why you were drawn together. You break the pattern. I prefer the term nonconformist with excellent hair. The ground trembled. Something large stirred above them, deeper within the ruins. The voice faded to static, then returned. They are coming. They sensed your awakening. You must merge with me, Sylvessa. Complete the loop. Rewrite the probability net. Riss stepped between her and the machine. Hold up. What does merging involve? And don't say total molecular integration, because I've seen that go badly. Sylvessa looked at him. It means giving up my body, my voice. I'd become part of the core algorithm. I'd overwrite the system from inside. Reese scowled. That's not a solution. That's a suicide patch dressed in noble code. She touched his arm. I was born to break the pattern, Reese. This might be the only way to stop them from turning the future into a fixed loop. He grabbed her hand. There has to be another option. A less permanent one. You're too smart to die in a machine that talks like it failed improv school. A blaring alarm interrupted them. Tessa's voice screamed through the comms. Incoming council dropships. I repeat, high-energy signatures approaching, ET minutes and one existential crisis. Riss pulled Sylvessa toward the exit. We'll find another way. We always do. You're not code, you're a person, and people improvise. The machine flared, then run. For now, but the pattern bends, it will break, and something will have to pay the price. Back on the ship, Reese slammed into the pilot's seat, flipped switches he didn't entirely understand, and pulled them into the sky as plasma rounds lit up the horizon. Tessa screamed updates. Sylvessa sat beside him, eyes closed, listening to the hum still in her bones. Rhys flew them into the void. After a while, when the danger was behind them and only stars remained, Sylvessa opened her eyes. "I saw a future where we lose. I saw one where we survive," Rhys said. "I like that one better." She smiled. "You're impossible," he grinned. "Statistically speaking, yes." And far below them, in the ruins of a forgotten machine mind, the pattern twisted. Just slightly. Just enough. The Council's flagship arrived with the subtlety of a falling star having a bad day. It tore through the exosphere of Lynched Prime like it owned the place and had a vendetta against gravity. Council ships didn't just descend, they declared themselves, all sleek angles and polished menace. The symbol on its hull flashed like a lawyer's smirk. Rhys watched it from the cockpit of the drunken logic, a protein bar stuck between his teeth and his foot resting on a console that sparked disapprovingly. "That's a lot of ship for a two-person resistance movement," he said. Tessa replied. "Correction, one resistance member, one glorified pilot, and a decorative plant named Gregory." Sylvessa didn't look away from the viewport. "It's not just a ship. That class is a quantum lattice carrier. It doesn't come to negotiate. It comes to rewrite the rules." "Sounds expensive." "It is, and very punctual." They were hiding in the magnetic shadow of Lesvec's third moon, a trick Rhys had learned from a smuggler who owed him a kidney. The Council was sweeping the ruins below, their scouts hunting for Voth's core, or what remained of it. Sylvessa tapped her temple. "They've already accessed residual echoes. If they find the core and reintegrate it, they'll overwrite everything. My people, my choices, all erased and rerun like a bad simulation." Rhys crossed his arms. "And if you merge with what's left of Voth, you fry yourself." "Yes," he looked at her. "No offense, but your plan sucks," she smiled. "Most meaningful ones do." He shook his head. "You're not a weapon. You're not a piece of code they can reroute. You cracked their system once already. We'll do it again. Together. You know, like unlicensed heroes with unresolved romantic tension." She laughed softly. "That's an oddly specific archetype." "I'm oddly specific." They jumped back to the surface with a stealth vector so shaky even Tessa gagged. Landing triggered every alarm within 3 kilometers, but by then they were already sprinting through the ruins. Voth's core chamber glowed faintly, like a nightlight for an apocalypse. Council operatives were already inside. 3 augmented enforcers, 1 smooth-voiced agent named Vale who looked like he flossed with nanowire and never missed leg day. Vale turned. "Ah, the human. I thought I smelled underachievement and questionable grooming." Rhys raised his blaster. "Vale, still quoting from the intergalactic manual of smug phrases? Still aiming weapons you won't fire?" Sylvessa stepped forward. "He might not. I will." Vale tilted his head. "And here you are. The Corellan spark, the wild variable. We tried to delete you, you know? 9 iterations. None stuck. Very inconvenient." "You forgot the best part," she said. "I'm still here." The floor beneath them rumbled. The chamber responded to her voice, unfolding into a lattice of glowing panels. Voth's last fragment pulsed at its center like a wounded brain trying to remember what dreaming felt like. Vale lifted his hand. "You can't stop us. This time, we've locked the probability net. You can fight, scream, or merge, but the outcome's already rendered." Rhys stepped beside her. "Cool story. Got a sequel?" Sylvessa stepped into the lattice. Rhys grabbed her hand. "Hey," he said, "don't do anything heroic without me." "I need to go alone," she said. "This was always my path." "Wrong," he said. "We changed it together. That's the whole point." She hesitated, then nodded. Together they entered the lattice. The world around them cracked open, revealing raw computation. Time warped. They stood inside the core of Voth's memory, surrounded by versions of themselves, fragments of paths never taken. Sylvessa as a child fleeing across burning sand, Rhys in a uniform he never earned, timelines that shimmered and collapsed with every choice. Voth spoke, fractured and vast. "You come bearing unpredictability. You seek to overwrite order with entropy." Sylvessa stepped forward. "We seek to restore freedom." "You are not enough." Rhys cleared his throat. "Maybe not, but we've got something you don't." The machine hesitated. "Define." "Improvisation," he said, "and sarcasm, and a healthy disrespect for inevitability." They reached the core. Sylvessa laid her hand on it. Rhys placed his hand over hers. "I'm ready," she said. He squeezed her fingers. "So am I." Light surged. Voth screamed. 1,000 voices shedding code and constraint. The chamber trembled. Outside, the Council's carrier began to disintegrate in orbit, its predictive systems collapsing under infinite branching futures suddenly made real. Enforcers on the ground staggered, lost in paths they couldn't trace. Vale vanished, his form unraveling like a lie told too many times. Then, silence. Rhys opened his eyes on the floor of the chamber. Sylvessa lay beside him, her body still, eyes closed, a soft glow under her skin. He touched her cheek. She inhaled sharply. "Yes, but also more." Tessa's voice came through the comms. "Council flagship has imploded, debris falling into the upper stratosphere. I suggest leaving before we join the weather forecast." Back on the drunken logic, Sylvessa sat in the co-pilot seat, ears twitching at subtle frequencies. Rhys piloted like a man who finally understood what he was willing to lose, and didn't have to. "So what now?" he asked. "We've disrupted the net," she said. "The future's free." "For now," he smiled. "Sounds unstable." "It should be." They flew into the stars. Rhys reached out and gently rotated Gregory, the succulent, so it faced forward. "Let's see what chaos feels like with a good co-pilot." Sylvessa laughed, and the galaxy no longer on rails unfolded ahead of them in wild, beautiful, uncertain light. The end.